Another month, another Marvel movie, as Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings was finally released over the weekend and appears to be doing really well so far. I don't expect or want to spoil anything for you guys because the movie literally just came out, so I'm gonna try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible. If I do spoil something, I will let you guys know first. That said, I will go through the early parts of the plot in a bit of detail, so yeah, bear that in mind. This is one of the new Marvel movies I was looking forward to the most because of the cast and the characters, although, truthfully, the trailers seemed a bit lacking. My hope was that this was the case because they didn't want to reveal too much, which is great. I hate when they put everything into the trailer, and to this movie's credit, I was right. They really didn't show a lot in the trailer because there are indeed some fun surprises in the film itself that would have been a shame to spoil. Just a heads up, I'm always right, okay? Thank you. The film sees Sean, a parking valet living in San Francisco, being forced to confront his past as a group of assassins suddenly track him down and attempt to steal an item given to him by his father. The latter being Shu Wenwu, an immortal warlord who has led an army called the Ten Rings for many years, conquering various kingdoms and, in modern day, secretly toppling governments. Shu Wenwu, who is of course the real Mandarin in the MCU, also literally has 10 rings. He's got these badass bracelets that give him an almost unsurmountable amount of power. So, cut to many years later, feeling unfulfilled in his life, Wenwu seeks out a mythical village called Talo. On his way there, he meets Sean's mother, who shows him a different kind of way to live his life. Sean, by the way, in case you haven't figured it out by this point, his real name is Shang-Chi in the movie. Cut again to present day, and Shang-Chi decides to drop everything to find his sister Xialing in Macau because he believes that she also may be in danger. His best friend Katie also comes along for the ride because I'm not actually completely sure about that part. She's kind of there because she's kind of there.
We make a good team!
So that's the very basic plot of Shang-Chi in a nutshell. It does get a little bit more complicated as it goes along, of course. Even though Black Widow is technically the first film to set up Marvel's Phase 4, this movie is the first big standalone movie that is not a prequel to hint at the MCU's future. Not including all the Disney TV shows, obviously. With a strong cast including the always entertaining Awkwafina, promising newcomers Simu Liu, bona fide movie legends Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh, among many others, this was set to frankly kick ass, but does it? Kind of. There's a lot to love about this movie. Like I said, the cast is just terrific. Simu Liu as Shang-Chi is a revelation. He's charming, funny, handles the action scenes brilliantly, as well as the more dramatic moments. I want to see a lot more of him in the MCU, and based on how well this movie's doing so far, I think we will. It couldn't have been easy for an actor to jump into a big role like this in the middle of a very significant franchise, and he nailed it. Frankly, he nailed it. The real treat for me, however, was seeing Tony Leung sink his teeth into a Hollywood role for once, and I gotta say, you have to commend Marvel for thinking outside the box with the casting here. Michelle Yeoh has done her share of Hollywood movies, of course, she's even already in the Marvel universe. I still have no idea how any of this is going to work, by the way. Maybe James Gunn can make some sense of it, or just ignore it completely. I don't know what they're gonna do with that. I say, just have Michelle Yeoh play every single character in the MCU and never explain it. Iron Man, the Hulk, all of it. Do it. Have some balls, Marvel. No, but seriously, as someone who grew up watching Wong Kar-wai movies like Chongqing Express, Happy Together, In the Mood for Love, not to mention the likes of City of Sadness, Infernal Affairs, the list goes on. There's really too many good Tony Leung movies to count. So just go watch all the ones I named and more. The Grandmaster, everything. Okay, just do it. I'll sit here while you go watch all the Tony Leung movies. Are you done? Alright, let's keep going with the review. I assume now that you've paused the review, you've gone to watch every single Tony Leung movie, and now you're back. So, good job. Let's keep going. As someone who grew up watching all these movies, I was really thrilled to see him being cast in this movie. Casting Tony Leung as Wenwu was quite simply a genius casting decision, and he really does an awesome job at not taking on a villain role and making it two-dimensional. This is a guy who could have just shown up and been like, you know what, this is beneath me, I'll do it for the money, alright, just give me the money, I'll just give you what you want, some generic crap. But he didn't do that. He showed this movie like a lot of respect, and even like on the set he was like watching very closely every single scene. He wanted the tone to be right every time. He's a pro. The guy's a pro. He approached this professionally and he created a really interesting character. Tony Leung brings a sensitivity, quiet menace, and complexity to what is a genuinely very interesting Marvel villain, both in the comics and in this movie. It's a great performance. It's not over the top. It's not particularly flashy or ridiculous in any way. It's just very grounded and very, very good. You know, he was honestly probably my favorite part of the movie. Now, I don't know if we'll see him again in another Marvel movie in the future, but I've got my fingers crossed.
Surprise!
The movie itself, like I said, has a lot going for it on top of the cast. The action here is really, really fun. The fighting choreography is very energetic and keeps you on your toes. There's a scene where a character is fighting a bunch of people on scaffolding, like on the side of a tall skyscraper. Meanwhile, you've got another character who's hanging off this wooden pole about to drop to their death. And all this is happening at the same time, and it's really exciting stuff. Oh, by the way, I was worried about the bus sequence that is teased in the trailer, because they show it a bit too much in my opinion. But you know what? It turns out, I gotta say, this scene delivered. It's, I would say, one of the strongest scenes in the movie, and it sets the tone brilliantly. Basically, as soon as you see Shang-Chi fight, you will be sold on the character, in my opinion. The world building here is also very solid. You're introduced to some extremely cool settings, like an underground fighting gang and the aforementioned mythical village Talo. Plus, you've got some clever setups for future MCU films. Now, where things get a little dicey is with the writing itself. I have to say I expected this movie to be a lot funnier and a lot more together in terms of its story. Okay, so the plot of this movie is pretty easy to follow and understand, right? It's a Marvel movie after all, but it's weird to me that this film doesn't flesh anything out. Apart from the main villain's story, it is very shallow in its own way. There's really not that many surprises in store here, and I found myself feeling a little underwhelmed by a lot of the scenes in this movie. Not by the actors' performances or the action scenes or anything like that, but by the stuff in between. Some of the exposition is presented to us in this movie in the form of flashbacks, which is fine, but sometimes the character will just walk around and just tell you everything in one info dump, while other character in the movie just listen. It's quite boring, and I feel like this movie has such good action sequences that the lulls in between are hugely damaging, because they're unnecessary and they slow everything right down to nothing. There's so much story and lore to tell here. I can't believe there's any boring parts at all in this movie. You could have filled those parts with, I don't know, any number of things. Character development, filling in those plot holes, or just kind of flat out like great visual storytelling. Look at Black Panther. Black Panther does have a lot of exposition to it, but you know what else it does have? Just really awesome visuals. And this movie has that too, but it doesn't really use it well all the time. Katie is a fun character, but the comedy in the film feels super forced when Awkwafina, had she been given some really funny lines, could have delivered them effortlessly. Plus, Katie as a character feels like she doesn't need to be there. Even if you like Katie as a character, you gotta admit that if she wasn't there, the movie would be fine. Like, it would still make complete sense. And I wanted her big hero moment to come out of nowhere and be hilarious, but it's not. It's kind of just a predictable thing that happens. Like, there's a way to do that scene that would have been hysterical in the theater. You could have built up Katie's big moment to be just so freaking funny, where she just kind of rages and loses it out of nowhere and does something really, really awesome. It doesn't come off that way though. I think they were kind of going for that, but it doesn't really impress at all. It's kind of just like, eh. Michelle Yeoh, I felt, was really underused in this movie. She's great when she's on screen, but we meet her character quite late in the game, and by that point, Wenwu, the movie's complicated villain, suspects her to be a villain herself. So why not make us believe that earlier in the movie? As it stands, Wenwu just comes off as deluded throughout, when had we, the audience, believed him more, this would have made the heroes more doubtful of the people of Talo and created a more interesting dynamic. Plus, everything from that point on would have been way more unexpected.
Surprise!
This is a little spoiler, alright? So if you don't want anything at all spoiled, come back to this timestamp, alright? You've been warned. When you see the guy walk into the village and pay his respects to his dead wife at a shrine, when the whole point of him being there was that he believes she's alive and well and being kept prisoner, it's unnecessarily jarring. This should have been so much more dramatic. There was so much dramatic potential in this movie, and it doesn't really always get there. Have him kick the shrine down. Have him battle Michelle Yeoh's character in a big fight, and then she gets killed in a brutal way. And then later on, when he comes to his senses, he has all these regrets just flooding back in. Like the whole time he thinks she's this monster who's keeping his wife prisoner, but like at the end, like he realizes, oh shit, what have I done? Dramatically, there were a lot of opportunities in this movie to flesh out these characters, keep some mystery about them, craft a much more rewarding tapestry with these characters and their stories, and just hit us with some good old drama. The end result does come off as a little underwritten. Now, having said that, this is the kind of thing that can be easily fixed in a superior sequel. I would actually be very interested to see a director's cut of this, because I know they cut some stuff out. You can tell, because I feel like, you know, some things would make a little more sense. I have other nitpicks here and there, like the CGI sometimes looks a bit more foggy than it should, but on the whole, I had a decent time with this movie. There's cool creatures and fun action scenes, pretty visuals, likable characters, with fascinating backstories. Shang-Chi is worth checking out, just don't expect it to blow you away from start to finish. It definitely has its strong moments, but it also has its clumsy parts, so just try not to let those parts kind of ruin the movie for you. The good stuff here is still very good, and it does have its funny moments. I did roll my eyes at most of the jokes though, so be warned. I for one look forward to seeing much more of Shang-Chi and maybe a more consistent sequel and some cheeky little crossovers down the line. So that's my mostly spoiler-free review of Shang-Chi. Please let me know what you thought about the movie in the comments, and don't forget to like and hit that bell and maybe subscribe if you're into it. Also, I do have a Patreon in case you are interested in supporting this channel further. And believe me, this channel can use all the support it can get. What's next? Oh yeah, Eternals. Well, that looks